I don't know what the fuck the outfits are today. I seriously don't. I don't know where that shirt that shirt is. It's like if he doesn't say something like this was my dad's shirt and I write it whenever I'm going through file folders, I'm not going to get this. And Debbie is obviously only there so that she can out racist him. Um, but let's bring it. Can multiculturalism work in America? Says uh, uh, a woman, I guess, of Hispanic descent from Venezuela and an Indian American felon.
Debbie and I are, well, this week we're doing
We're a troubled couple.
a Thursday roundup rather than a Friday roundup.
Yeah, because you got big plans for the weekend. Debbie D'Souza, who's the producer of the Dinesh D'Souza podcast, which is something you've never heard of.
And we want to start by talking about
Oh, well, that's a great way to start a podcast, I will say, is talking.
about the issue of multiculturalism. Now, for several decades, we've been assured that multiculturalism is the way to go.
It is the way to go.
It's an unadulterated good. It's a great blessing to society's cultural enrichment.
Yeah, the cultural enrichment as far as multiculturalism, yeah, is culturally speaking.
Diversity of peoples and cultures and cuisines and ideas.
Cuisines, I call them cousins, and many of them I won't let move into my house, but a couple I would.
And presumably this is a lot better than having, well, I guess you'd call it a homogenous or maybe a monocultural society.
Like, for example,
Now,
the places both of you guys, your families left, you mean, essentially?
I think that first
Oh, it's way too, this one's loud? I beg your pardon. Okay, thank you.
of all,
Oh, it is.
the idea of monocultural societies is not right. I mean, it's silly. Why? Because societies that seem monocultural on the surface. Look at India. India is pretty monocultural in the
It is.
sense that
Seems
it's Indian people all over the place.
That's true. India does have a lot of Indian people all over the place.
But 23 different languages, a vast, for many, many different religions, at least
Right.
7 or 8 major ones, and then a bunch of minor ones.
Yeah, the little ones, the minor league religions are really the troublemakers, I would
People
say.
eat different types of cuisine.
They eat their own cousins like that?
Hindustani is only spoken in one part of the country, not the other. So the
Yeah, that other place, the non-Hindu place.
idea
yeah.
that India is a monoculture is not even true. It's just that the Indians resemble each other. They're all brown, but they're
I see. So there's multiculturalism inside India. And India, you would argue, is a successful state or a failed state?
very different in many ways.
Mhm.
Japan is a homogenous society. What's wrong with Japan? Nothing at all.
Well, it's aging really fast, and they can't replace their population because you're only Japanese if you're Japanese. That's an issue.
Ireland is a, 90 or 92% white. What's wrong with that? Nothing at all. And yet, there are people in Ireland, including apparently the Irish Prime Minister, who thinks Ireland is too white. Ireland needs to let in more Muslims.
Right. Again, the multiculturalism. Why we're going after by the way, there's lots of different Irish as well. Apparently, that's okay for the Indians. They can be multicultural inside their own culture because they all look the same. If the Irish span some other cultures as well, that doesn't count because they're white. I don't know, Dinesh. It sounds like you're being very racist. Also, for the record, can we do ourselves a favor? I'm not taking either of these idiots seriously in what they're talking about. Don't get caught up into thinking that this is a real conversation about shit.
More brown people and more black people, because apparently he's bought into the idea that multiculturalism is a great idea and that there's something wrong with the country being 92% white. Now, I want Debbie, of course, to weigh into this, but I mean, think about this. Nobody else says this, right? Have you ever heard an African leader go, the Congo is too black? No, they never say that. Somalia
Actually,
is too black. They never say that. They assume that Africa is a black continent, largely for black people. There are, of course, some whites in South Africa and so on.
Yeah, it's a great example.
But
I would argue that might be the primary reason why they don't say Somalia is too black. That I think South Africa might just kind of sit there as a little.
what do you think about this?
Yeah, come on, Debbie. Just when we thought Dinesh couldn't be more embarrassingly racist for no particular purpose, Debbie, jump in and show us how it's done.
We're talking about, you were saying there's only one type of multiculturalism that works.
Well, as someone who came to this country not speaking English, right? I picked it up really quickly, but I didn't speak it, and I really didn't like it.
Yeah, and I got to say, most of us aren't really that impressed.
But I knew, even as a 10-year-old, I knew that
I'd have to keep my accent so that I would. Oh wait,
this was my adopted country. Of course, my mother is Mexican American from the Rio Grande Valley, but even in some parts of that culture, they retain the Mexican culture more than the American culture. So they celebrate Cinco de Mayo, they celebrate all the Mexican festivities and all of that.
yeah, but they also celebrate July 4th. That's not more. That's just an addendum. I'm sorry. That's my bad. I suddenly started taking this conversation seriously.
And not so much the 4th of July and all of those things. Well, I was determined to do that, not retain the nationality of, I guess, of my own culture, because I had two cultures. I had the Venezuela culture and the Mexican American culture.
So the American culture. So by calling it Mexican American, you're retaining some of that Mexican heritage and at the expense of America. How dare you? How dare you, Debbie? How dare you? The nerve.
But I decided very early on
That if you spoke English, you would speak it like a Karen.
that I was going to be an American, and
Well, that's because you are an American.
that American values, American history was going to be important in my life and in my offspring whenever I had a family, that was important. So
Yeah, who does that? Who comes to America with that idea? I mean, has somebody told other immigrants this? Because apparently this is a new idea.
that is why when I went off to college and
And wasted your time, obviously, and got indoctrinated into leftist propaganda and became a cultural Marxist.
LULAC came knocking at the door.
LULAC, League of United Latin
Yeah.
American Citizens. And some of these guys are really radical. They're like, well, half of the United States should be given back to Mexico.
Yeah, they had
So
very La Raza mentality, and they couldn't understand why I was not embracing that.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? I mean, we all know about LULAC. It's a constant struggle. And never mind the folks in Mexico that wish that the northern parts of Mexico had been grabbed up by the United States so they could have the economic benefits of being part of the United States, that talk about that shit all the time. But, right.
And basically, they started calling me kind of a sellout, and that, I thought I was Anglo and this and that. And basically, I had only
The nerve. How dare they?
been in the United States about
Yeah, LULAC Lemon. It's Meadowlark's sister.
8 years at this point. So Spanish
She made $1 billion in tights,
was still very much my
which I think so have the guys in Kiss. So there you go.
language. I still spoke it very well, and
almost native, yeah.
right. And
Almost native. Fucking hell.
so then I decided, you know what, I'm going to go full Spanish on this guy. Turns out he couldn't even speak it. So
Oh my God. It's so ironic, isn't it? And this anecdote is totally true, guys. I'm not making up any of this. And it's just, I dunked on this person, and and if you don't believe me, you can ask my Canadian girlfriend, who's totally real and calls me all the time.
So I was like, really? So you're
Really? Oh, but I said like really, but in Spanish.
telling me that I am not, that I can't embrace my Latin American culture
And roots.
and you can, and yet I speak the language and you don't. So I think he kind of
Which language? Maybe he speaks Oaxacan or something like that, because Spanish is not the cultural language. Spanish is a European language. Maybe he spoke Nahuatl or something like that. Maybe he spoke. I mean, it's even possible he spoke Portuguese, but of course, Portugal is not a South American country too. So,
left me alone at that point and decided
yeah, I mean, he probably was looking for the exits.
that I was kind of a lost cause.
Yeah.
But I always felt like the only
The dumbest person in the room.
way to really make it work is to assimilate in the society that you came to.
Yeah, I think
Right?
this is the point you're making.
Unlike these other fucking stupid immigrants with their stupid accents and their stupid not being Americans, First of all, again, the amount of bigotry in just that little bubble right there that she's just here's just a giant egg of bigotry. Just crack that open and fry it on the fucking sidewalk.
The larger point is this, that
Yeah, get to it.
there is a type of multiculturalism that can work,
Oh, good.
but it's a multiculturalism that is incorporated within and subordinated to a shared national identity,
Right.
right? So if we all embrace the Constitution, we all embrace the laws, we embrace
That's not culture.
patriotic symbols, we defend
Again, even that part. You don't that's rudimentary to the idea of moving there. That's not cultural.
the country and its values, then it
Which values would that be?
doesn't matter if you want to go eat, chicken tikka masala, or I do, and somebody else wants to.
Or she definitely doesn't. And by the way, chicken tikka masala, you fucking you're gonna go with like fucking grocery store Indian food.
Eat
And
enchiladas.
Someone really liked that
So
chicken
somebody does.
tikka masala.
He does. We microwave it every night. It's just like his mom used to microwave.
Once about every 2 weeks, I kind of get the Indian. But the thing about Indian
no, I
food
would
too is
say-
that Debbie's like,
yeah.
in fact, at one point you were like, I'm going
Oh boy, oh dear, this is about to go so bad.
to make it for
I
you.
know.
And then you
Yeah.
realize that when you look
Yeah.
at the recipe,
Oh
you
my
were
gosh.
expecting like
The
4 or
list,
5.
the list of ingredients is
Alone.
endless, endless. And I said, you know what, honey? I think we'll just go eat at Emerina.
That's right. We pick a local restaurant and
It's an Indian restaurant where they make it for us, and I buy it at like everyone else does, and it's so authentic.
so I think this is right. There is multiculturalism that can work, but it has to work within a patriotic framework.
Great, thanks, bro. Thanks. I feel yeah. We do it can. So people can remember their home country and support it as long as they came here for a reason, like you would do. And so the problem with that entire video was that the premise is that they don't. Is that people who come here don't come here with that idea. They bring their multicultural idea, they bring their culture from their country and they want to impose it on the United States, which they never fucking do. They seriously don't. And by the way, I would say the only example you'd see that plays out that way is Latin American Catholics as a large group being pro-life and wanting more restrictions on abortion politically than the vast majority of Americans who've been here longer. That group, you know what I mean? Like that's the only difference. And even then, the more they live here, if they have kids here and they're a couple generations in, they generally, their ideas about it even out to the rest of it as well. Yeah, it's citizenship. Exactly, Paul. These fucking idiots. Thank you, Tyler, for subscribing. That's very cool. All right. Thanks, Tyler. That was great. So, Dinesh values.